On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors have won 2 games in a row, and a big reason why is their lead guard, who just might be an absolute stud.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, April the 8th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the Hell website at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. The link is in the description of the podcast. It's a great place to come and hang out, talk about the Raptors, talk about the draft, talk about Arby's. It's all going on in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Would love to see you become part of our listener community over there on the disc. Again, link in the description, free to join. Come hang out. There's no reason not to. Okay. You can, of course, find the show for free wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, etc., and all the audio apps of your choosing. You can also find us on YouTube. Go subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and when you do that, you'll get a heads up every single time the show is about to premiere or go live, so you never miss a second of that sweet Locked On Raptors action as we talk about your torrenting, unbelievably unstoppable Toronto Raptors. 2 games in a row, baby, on the heels of a 15-game losing streak. What a weekend. This might be the first time we've talked about back-to-back wins on a weekend all season long. I have you not yet to document this properly, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Usually we're talking about a sweep or a split, but no, 2 wins against the Bucks, who, even without Giannis, looking a little bit grim over there, and of course the Washington Wizards, who are the kings of looking grim. Your Toronto Raptors are not that anymore, and it's very, very exciting. We'll get into it on today's show. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedInNBA. Use the code, all lowercase, LockedInNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, let's get to it. On today's show, yes, we are reveling, basking, luxuriously in a pair of wins for the Raptors. 117-111 over the Bucks on Friday in a win for the Raptors, a loss for the Bucks that certainly makes things fascinating at the top of the Eastern Conference when it comes to the Bucks. Are the Magic going to be the 2 seed? Unreal. The Raptors playing spoiler. You love to see it. And then, of course, they take down the Washington Wizards, hurting their bid, I suppose, for the 31st overall pick by giving the Wizards another loss, although I do think the Wizards are clear of the Pistons at this point, so the Raptors should be in pretty good shape there. Either way, lots to get to from a couple of wins that, make me feel good coming into a weekend. The weather's nice. The eclipse is happening. Everything's exciting. The Raptors are winning basketball games. All is right in the world. And we'll talk about Gary Trent Jr. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the but I want to talk off the top about Immanuel freaking Quickley, who to me is the biggest reason why the Raptors picked up both of these wins. On Friday against the Bucks, he goes off for 25, 11, and 9, 3 steals, just 4 of 12 from the field, but makes it back with 14 of 15 at the free throw line. We'll talk more about free throws later on in the show, but just a masterful sort of finger on the pulse kind of performance from Immanuel Quickley, and then follows it up with a season-high 31 points, 13 assists, 7 boards, a plus 22, 9 of 15, 10 of 10 from the line, 3 of 7 from deep against the Wizards. Easily their best player against Washington on Sunday, their best player over the course of the weekend. And I don't know, man. To me, he's very much looking the part of a high-end guard who can be an engine for a good team, obviously given, the supporting cast getting healthy around him and all of that stuff. But look, there's kind of, to me, 2 different schools of thought when it comes to guards and like styles of guards. There are scoring guards who are just out there to go get buckets. And then there are lead guards. And to me, Immanuel Quickley, who it seemed like maybe he was just a scoring guard for his time playing with the Knicks, where he was, just kind of in for microwave scoring, getting those shots up and all of that stuff. To me, he very much looks like a lead guard, the type who you can run out there as a first or second best player and have him, kind of have your offense in safe hands. A guy who can sort of guide things through the motions and create good looks for you just by existing on the floor with his gravity, with his playmaking, with his driving. He just does so much really, really good right now. And there's plenty of room for things to get even better for Immanuel Quickley. It's just been an absolute delight to watch. There's so many things about Quickley's game, little intricacies that are a blast to me. As a lead guard, he's kind of doing like the Steve Nash thing where he's sort of probing with his handle. He keeps his dribble alive. He doesn't pick it up too early, which was a thing he was doing when he first got to Toronto. You remember there were so many drives where he'd kind of drive right to sort of like the high post area and then pick it up and have to kick it back out, reset the possession. Not so much the case anymore. He is keeping that dribble alive. He's nashing the pick and roll. He's looking for seams. He's looking for cutters. He's looking for opportunities to get his own shot up within the mess of, big bodies around him. And that handle, it seems to have come a long way, even just since arriving in Toronto. The rate at which Immanuel Quickley has figured out the lead guard thing is pretty flabbergasting to me. Like I thought it would take some time. I thought it would be even, next season would be kind of where he tests his limits as a lead guard. But I kind of feel like he's ready to jump in day one next season and just kind of be that guy. And the upside of a guy like that is pretty extreme. Since the All-Star break, 21 points, 6 boards, 8 assists, 45, 38, 83 shooting splits. That's a 59% true shooting percentage, better than a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. He's been playing like all-star level ball since the trade deadline. He's been fantastic. There are 3 guys in the NBA this season averaging 20.6 boards, 7 assists over the course of the season. That is Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, and Luka Doncic. Immanuel Quickley is not any of these guys, but the fact that he's averaging that production in this, 16 games or so that he's played since the All-Star break, that's meaningful. That is like something to grow on, something to really kind of fuel your optimism going into next season. Immanuel Quickley rocks, man. He does, again, so many things at the point of attack as a creator that make things challenging for defenses. The pull-up obviously has been a massive weapon for him. Feels like he's going to that a little bit more liberally, and now he's working in a pump fake where he's going to the pull-up, he's pumping, and he's getting dudes to jump out of their shoes. He's either relocating for a 3 or using that space to drive and creating all sorts of havoc for the defense that way. He's actually, surprisingly, finishing at the rim when he gets downhill. So far as a Raptor, he's shooting 70% at the rim. That's 84th percentile per cleaning the glass. That's really good stuff. And yes, it's kind of balanced out by the fact that he's kind of had outlier bad numbers for his career from floater range. That was sort of the big ticket item for him coming in from the Knicks, right? Was, this guy's floater is something else. That hasn't been there. It's still the touches off, even over the weekend, a few examples of it not being there. But he's making up for it by just converting at the rim at the best rate of his career. And he's also getting to the line a ton, 5 times a game since the All-Star break. And if you expand that out just to the last couple of games, 10 free throw attempts against the Wizards, 15 against the Bucks, put that game away with a lot of free throws late. And yeah, some of them were sort of the foul game, kind of ratcheting up those totals, but you don't get to 15 free throws by accident. 25 over the course of 2 games. That's huge. If he's getting to the free throw line, if he is finishing at the rim, you can live with the floater maybe not being this money shot for him. However, you would expect that based on his career numbers from short mid-range, where that floater tends to be, getting off, he's probably going to come back more towards his career averages. He's like 36% from short mid-range right now. That's just well below where he's ever been. You factor in that he is one of the best isolation players in the league since becoming a Raptor. 1.11 points per possession in ISO, 87th percentile per NBA.com as an isolation player. That's huge. As a pick and roll ball handler, he's only 50th percentile, but remember coming in, he was a 98th percentile pick and roll ball handler with the Knicks before the trade. And if you go back through his career, every year before this, he's been in the 78th percentile exactly. Like he's a top quarter of the league guy as a pick and roll ball handler. And, I think a big part of why he struggled as a pick and roll ball handler since becoming a Raptor, which is not even to say he's struggling. He's just middle of the pack when it comes to efficiency. Jakob Poeltl, who he's had wonderful chemistry with in the pick and roll, has not been available for most of the games that Immanuel Quickley has been in Toronto. He missed that stretch in January. Obviously, he's been out since early March now as well. I think that's going to get a lot better when Quickley's playing with him again next season. He just does a lot of really good stuff. He has a higher assist percentage on drives than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, than Jalen Brunson, than De'Aaron Fox, than Tyrese Maxey, than Damian Lillard. He's a guy who can get into the teeth of the defense and spray all kinds of passes around. he creates really good looks with that driving gravity that he has. He is someone who, like, he just kind of checks every box of, okay, like this guy can be sort of like a fringe all-star to all-star level lead guard and be one of the single best guards in the Eastern Conference. Like, this is what Immanuel Quickley is flashing the capability of doing, albeit in a sort of garbage portion of the stretch of the season where there's not a whole lot to really glean because the team isn't itself. But like, the individual performance being this good, being this efficient, with the supporting cast not being there, with his best pick and roll partner not being available, with Scotty Barnes not there to take on offensive burden. It's pretty intriguing stuff, man, that he's doing this at this level with the supporting cast he's playing with. I also think, you know, he's flashed like a whole array of passes, right? Like, it's not just the drive and kick stuff. It's the pick and roll. It's the high-low stuff. The no look to RJ Barrett under the basket in that Wizards game. Pretty nasty stuff. He's just like a really cerebral passer. He's kind of got a great, I mentioned it earlier, finger on the pulse of the game. That's the type of stuff I love watching in a guard. I don't want a guard who's just out there to score buckets. Like, give me someone who can command the game. And Quickley is absolutely doing that in a way that I think even maybe the biggest Knicks optimists weren't like thinking it was going to happen this soon for him. And also, like, it's not nothing that he stands a chance of being an above average defender for his player archetype as well, right? Like, he's long. He's a very smart player. He's a good shot contester. We saw it in that late game contest on Malik Beasley in the Bucks game to kind of save things. He got the block. Like, he's just long. He's smart. He can contest shots well, make a disruption when he gets out there. Yeah, he's going to get bullied at the point of attack sometimes, but I think when you look around the league, I just mentioned some of those guys, Tyrese Maxey, Damian Lillard, Jalen Brunson. Not all these guys are incredible defenders. You can get by with pretty bad defense, frankly, at that position if you're good enough on offense. And frankly, I think what Quickley's doing on defense flashes something at, at least league average and perhaps above as his sort of ceiling. I've been bullish on Quickley all the way through, like since the summertime when I was demanding the Raptors find a way to get him on the team. Could not be more thrilled he's on the team now, and I might be even more bullish on what his upside could be than I even was when the Raptors picked him up based on what he's done here in this stretch with a pretty depleted roster around him. He's awesome, man. Loving Immanuel Quickley. He's flirting with triple doubles. It's all very, very exciting stuff with him, and I cannot wait to see him play with Scotty Barnes next season. And one other thing I keep on thinking with Quickley is, my God, am I thankful the Orlando Magic didn't hop on a Quickley trade before the Raptors did. What a disaster that would have been. It's amazing the Raptors got him, frankly. I've had a lot of my misgivings with the Raptors front office. You can go listen to my meltdown episode last week after the Wolves game if you want an example of that. But you cannot argue that OG for Barrett and Quickley trade, an absolute home run considering the circumstances. Yes, the Raptors could use an OG type on this team, but an OG type on this team was not getting them anywhere without a player like Immanuel Quickley. And that guy, man, I am so excited about the next few years of watching this dude cook, because right now the early returns, extremely, extremely encouraging. We're going to come back on the other side, get another guy who's played very well, was a big part of the wins over the weekend, and maybe keeping him is just the move. We'll talk about Gary Trent Jr., who was a standout from the 2 wins, coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the single best daily fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest, most exciting way to get in on the action and watch all your favorite sports and players. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, projections, and watch the winnings roll in if you're right. March is over, but the biggest moments in college basketball tip off in the month of April. Be a part of the action tonight as UConn takes on Purdue. Maybe some Zach Edey. Take the more on his rebounds or his points, because man, oh man, is he racking them up. You can go ahead and be all up in that national championship game tonight on Prize Picks if you want to be. You can obviously get your playoff action on the NHL, MLB season starting up. You got basketball playoffs coming up as well. WNBA season starting soon. It's all there for you. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com, or download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNBA at Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, we continue on here. Your first listen of the day. Thanks so much for hanging out as I, maybe went long in that first segment talking about how damn much I love Immanuel Quickley. But, well, what can I say? It was a pretty fun weekend of watching Immanuel Quickley play hoop. Also fun this weekend was Gary Trent Jr., who was the leading man, scoring wise at least, against the Bucks. Had that massive second quarter explosion to kind of put the Raptors ahead in a position to win that game. 31 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 11 of 22, 7 of 15. Very high end Gary Trent Jr. line against the Bucks, and then he comes out against the Wizards, goes for 20 points, 7 boards, 5 assists. 5 assists from Gary Trent Jr. Are you kidding me? 3 steals, 9 of 16, 2 of 4 from deep, a plus 18. A really, really good weekend for Gary Trent Jr. and a really good weekend for anyone who thinks Gary Trent Jr. is someone the Raptors should be keeping around long term. And guess what? I think I'm maybe counting myself in this group now. I still maintain we have not learned a damn new thing about Gary Trent Jr. this season. He is still very much the same guy, 40-ish% shooter from 3. He's going to struggle scoring at the rim if he ever even gets there. He's got the mid-range game, not much in the way of playmaking instincts. The defense is not very good unless he's hawking steals. And when he does that, it's great. When it's working out, awesome. When it's not, he's out of position. He causes havoc everywhere else for the defense to go and clean up. He is the same guy. But maybe that guy is a valuable player to have around. And I think considering the success the Raptors starting 5 had for that brief window where they had the Quickley, Trent, Barrett, Barnes, Pirtle group together, where they were like a plus 11 per 100 possessions, looking very strong, kind of on both ends, actually. Like their defense was holding up just fine. I still have questions about a Barrett, Trent 2-3 defensively. I would much prefer Barrett be your sort of nominal 2 defensively. I would like to see a bigger defensive wing in there at some point. But for now, when it looks like, finding that sort of long-term solution at the wing is going to be a harder thing to do this summer than you'd like, right? Like it's not like those guys are growing on trees. It's hard to find them. You might have to draft one and hope they develop into something. This is why I'm very much on the train of just take all of the wings in the draft and hope one really hits to really complete the picture here. But if you can't get a wing this summer, keeping Gary Trent Jr. around, and also in tandem, I think this kind of goes hand in hand, keeping Bruce Brown as well too. Like I think that is maybe the best outcome for the Raptors right now. When you look at the landscape of the offseason, yes, like if a trade falls out of nowhere, amazing, go trade for your wing of the future. That's a hard thing to predict, and it's far more likely that a trade is not going to happen than it is to happen at any time, right? So you can't really bank on that. You got to be opportunistic. You got to be ready if something happens. If the Wolves decide they don't want to pay Jaden McDaniels anymore, and you got to hop in on that. If the Pelicans wash out and one of Ingram or Murphy or Herb Jones, who's not getting traded because Herb Jones is incredible, but if any of those guys kind of shake loose and become available from the Pelicans, if, Mikal Bridges becomes someone who's attainable for a more reasonable price than the Nets seem to be asking for in the summer, whatever, if any of these guys becomes available, the Raptors got to be in on the conversation for sure. And that is the sort of pie in the sky, high end outcome for the summer. But if not, Gary Trent Jr. is additive to this team. He fits into the lineups that they need to play. He offers shooting, which is a valuable thing on this team, even though the shooting's improved because Quickley's there and Barrett's been okay. He's been pretty good. I think he probably nets out to okay. I think Scotty Barnes probably nets out to okay as a 3-point shooter. He was very up and down this season. Obviously, I think probably league average-ish is what you can hope for there. Grady Dick obviously is a great 3-point shooter, but this is not a loaded roster with dead-eye shooters. And so if you're going to pay Gary Trent Jr., just north of the mid-level exception or whatever it's going to take to keep him around, I don't think he's going to be like a toxic asset or anything like that. And he actively helps this team. His entire career, his numbers playing with Scotty Barnes have been good, have been really effective. Those two guys drive positive offensive performance together. And I just think because the free agent market looks like it's maybe not so good, we already knew this, but keep on thinking, like, would you rather have a pretty reasonably affordable Gary Trent Jr. or a slightly overpaid Malik Monk for the next couple of years? I think I'd maybe just go Gary Trent Jr. Monk's a better player, there's no doubt, but the fit, the money, I don't know. I kind of think Gary Trent Jr. plus Bruce Brown, or whatever you can get for Bruce Brown, is maybe a better combination to have going forward than throwing the bag at a big free agent. Maybe you use your mid-level exception on a wing. That'd be fine. I'd be cool with that if it's a Najee Marshall or a Caleb Martin as a stopgap, a fill-in. But I don't think it's necessarily likely they find their long-term wing solution this summer. And so in lieu of that, just keep around a guy who you already have the bird rights on, who you know, who's been an absolute professional for you for the last couple seasons, seems to be very much bought into what you're doing, has a great relationship with Darko Rajakovic from all accounts, and is a part of this group. Like, have some continuity, keep him around. I don't think it's a bad thing at all, considering how he's playing. And I don't think I would count myself as like even a Gary Trent Jr. believer necessarily. I just think he's been perfectly cromulent this year and is worthy of keeping around at a pretty reasonable cost, because I just don't see the avenue to improving upon him or getting a better player in the summer. And I think, the whole sort of cap space route that implies moving on from both Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr. And I think both of those guys in the aggregate, even if the plan is to just trade Bruce Brown at the draft next year, if you can't get something for him, or sorry, the deadline next year, if you can't get something for him at this year's draft, I still think like a few months of Bruce Brown on your team plus Gary Trent Jr. for a while is a better use of whatever flexibility they might have. Like, their flexibility does not just have to mean they clear the decks and swap out the books. No, it could just mean they have optionality to do whatever they want. And one of those options is to just keep Gary Trent Jr. in-house, keep Bruce Brown in-house, and have them be part of the team next year. Have them be part of a build that seems like it could be going somewhere once you get Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl back. So, yeah, again, we're not learning anything about Gary Trent Jr. He can go off and have a quarter where he scores 15 and can't miss, and then he'll have a stretch where he goes cold. He's obviously been better as a starter than a bench player. I think that's more tied to the players he's been playing with as a second unit guy for the Raptors over the last few years than it is that he can't play as a bench player. So eventually, if you find a replacement for him, or you want to go sort of bigger and have Grady Dick in there with his length, like that could be something that you do and move Gary Trent Jr. to the bench by the time his next contract is up. And I don't think that would be any sort of albatross decision either. And it seems like he's pretty cool with whatever. He's a very amenable guy to like being coached, to being deployed how the coaches want to use him, it seems. And so given all that, I think I'm planting my flag and just keep Gary, keep Bruce, and try to find a mid-level guy. Being over the cap team, use your mid-level exception, all that good stuff. I don't think that's a bad thing by any means for the Raptors to pursue this summer, considering the options that are out there, barring some kind of, godsend trade, falling from the heavens. Either way, let's continue on. We'll come back on the other side. That's my Gary spiel. We'll get into the good, the bad, and the to round out the show and wrap it all up from the weekend that was. 2 wins. My God, 2 wins. We're feeling good here on a Monday. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion with a B professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, and you might not have the time or resources to hire. I've been a hiring manager. It's really hard. It takes a ton of time. Let LinkedIn do it for you. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. You should as well. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, wrapping it up here. Your Monday, not Friday. God, I wish it was Friday. Monday episode of Locked On Raptors. Looking at the good, the bad, and the from the weekend that was. Again, 2 wins for your Toronto Raptors. You're fighting Toronto Raptors, who are obviously not fighting for much right now. But it's nice to pick up wins. It's nice to have positive things happen on the basketball floor. We'll get into the good, the bad, and the which is, of course, a thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, and a thing that's got me a bit intrigued from the most recent in Toronto Raptors basketball games. So for me, my good, it's been a sore spot all season long. It's been a weakness, but free throws in that Bucks game won the Raptors the game. Full circle moment for their free throw shooting. Going into, or actually still after that game and after the weekend's games, the Raptors are 29th in the NBA in free throw percentage. It has been baffling all season long. This is a thing the Raptors used to be consistently one of the very best at during the DeMar, Kyle, Valanciunas era. We know this. It's been a little trickier the last couple of years. OG up and down, Pascal with his weird swoons. Same thing happened at the start of this season, but obviously RJ Barrett as well has had a really rough go from the free throw line since becoming a Raptor, and one of the more baffling things that's happened to any player this season on the Raptors. But in this game against the Bucks, they closed this thing out with a ton of free throws down the stretch, living and thriving at the free throw line. Again, it's been a bugaboo all year, pre or post trade, but RJ 9 of 11 in this game. You love to see that. Some key ones late, absolutely massive stuff. Kelly Olynyk 5 of 6 from the line. Immanuel Quickley, obviously 14 of 15. Some big ones late. They don't win that game if they shoot free throws like the Toronto Raptors have shot free throws most of this season. A very nice, refreshing 86% clip from the line in the win against the Bucks. Hit your free throws, kids. You'll win basketball games. My bad from this weekend. And if you just look at the sort of box scores, it becomes pretty obvious who was bad this weekend. It's the bench guys. It's the guys who are fighting it out for scraps, fighting it out for rotation jobs next year. Outside of Grady Dick, obviously, who came off the bench, and Bruce Brown came off the bench as well and had a pretty decent game against the Wizards. The guys who are in the conversation for, are they going to be on the team next season? Are they going to get NBA jobs anywhere? Not terribly thrilling to watch. Jalen McDaniels continues to be just one of the least equipped NBA players I've seen play for the Raptors. We'll get to this on an episode later this week as we revisit our bold predictions with Joseph Cacharo from The Score. But I was just entirely too in on Jalen McDaniels. An absolute fool I was. He's been really bad, and he was very bad this weekend. You had Malik Williams still has yet to score a point. Pretty grim out there. It's not looking great. You feel for the guy. He just got picked up and was thrown into the Wolves, and maybe he's an NBA level player. We'll see. Maybe they keep him around on a two-way going into next season or whatever it might be, but not been great for Malik Williams. We'll see there. And then, Javon Freeman-Liberty even had a bit of a step back this weekend. Even though he didn't shoot well, he was 0-5 against the Wizards, there are still little things he does where I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. He gets to the rim pretty easily. He's got a nice first step. Can really kind of barrel his way there against smaller guys. He's very strong. He can push guys out of the way. You like that. You want to see some better finishing. You want to see him contribute with the good players who are now playing and sort of figure into in-between lineups and stuff like that. We've yet to see that. A -12 against the Wizards. He was a -8 against the Bucks as well. Not great stuff. But, he's still the guy in this group of guys who I think is easily the most likely to be on the team next season and actually contribute. And then Jordan Nwora, he's Jordan Nwora. People know how I feel about Jordan Nwora. Not a huge fan. Gets the DNP-CD against the Wizards. That feels maybe notable for his long-term outlook. Not a very good game. Just 12 points. Just 12 minutes, 2 of 4 from the field against the Bucks, but really bad defense, as you often see. And even listening to the Bucks broadcast of this game, they even had thoughts on Jordan Nwora's defense. They were kind of talking about how Darko Rajakovic was saying, yeah, he's got some offensive juice, but he's got to figure out some of the finer points of defense. And Marcus Johnson and Lisa Byington, who are the broadcasters for the Bucks, just yeah, where have you heard that before with Jordan Nwora, huh? So this is not a new thing. Jordan Nwora has always been a very bad defender, and I think it's probably going to end up costing him a position on this team going forward as he's a free agent. I don't think he's doing a whole lot to garner a long-term addition or long-term contract with his team or anything like that. But yeah, that's nice though. It's because the bench guys weren't having to start in this game. So the Raptors won these games. It's fantastic. Getting to have the good players in the lineup, the guys who, fit together, the guys who have creation ability. It's just a delight to watch NBA basketball again after a little stretch in the wilderness there where they're not really throwing out NBA players for a while. So love it from the getting to watch the good players perspective, but my bad is definitely the guys who are fighting for jobs on next year's team, not really showing a whole lot of fight in that regard. Let's get to the to round it out. This has nothing to do with the on-court stuff from this weekend. It is all to do with graphic design. I think we've all seen the Vince Carter dunking Raptor logo that the Raptors have put out there in honor of Vince Carter being inducted into the Hall of Fame. We talked about it on Friday's podcast if you want to hear our Vince thoughts with myself and Vivek Jacob. But my thinking from this logo is, what if this is just the logo for the team? It wouldn't be the first time that an NBA logo has been designed in the sort of likeness of a real guy. Of course, the NBA logo is Jerry West's silhouette. What is keeping the Raptors from the Raptor in the Vince Carter through the legs dunk pose in a Raptors jersey just being the logo for the team? You going into the 30th season next year, I have been like pounding this desk to the point that there's cracks in my desk all season long about to next season. They have to switch up the brand. They got to redesign. They got to go back to the purples. It's the 30th season. It's a new era of the team. Start fresh. We had the wonderful We the North era and the championship era, wearing the black and the red and the white and the gold and all of that. It's time to go back to purple. And what better way to sort of update the old vision? If you don't want to go right back to the original, jersey design and all that stuff, I get it. You got to vary it up so you can sell jerseys and stuff. But what better way to honor the 30th season of the franchise than by just having the Raptor doing the Vince Carter through the legs dunk as your logo at center court? I don't care. That would be the single best center court logo in all of basketball. If the Raptors were to induct it, I keep on saying it, they will make so much money just from me alone, let alone all you sickos out there, if they go back to purple next season. And maybe, just maybe, this logo is like the first inkling that maybe they're going to tap back in to their original color scheme. And I think it would be pretty darn sweet if Vince Carter dunking through his legs in the image of the Raptor, the other best dunker in basketball history, were the logo. I think that would be bloody fantastic. I hope this is not just a novelty logo we see around socials for a couple days. Just make it the logo, please. God, it's so good. I want stickers of it everywhere in my house, like some kind of freak. All right. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. And this was fun. Talking about wins, winning basketball. It's great. When the team wins games, I feel good. And the podcast doesn't have the meltdown thing that happened last week. Oh, look, it was a hard day on Thursday. Either way, moving on, feeling good. And we'll be back again tomorrow and all week to, a couple of big games. You got the Pacers, you got the Nets, big games, quote unquote. I don't know. They're interesting games. The Pacers Heat games this week are certainly interesting for the playoff race in the Eastern Conference. Would love to play some spoiler. If the Raptors beat the Pacers, they could go a long way to the Pacers pick being good. That's nice. Let's go. Root for wins, baby. So there's that. You can play spoiler with the Heat later in the week. We'll talk about all that. It'll be great. We're going to take up our bold predictions with Joseph Gashar from The Score this week as well. Hopefully going to get Richard Stamen from Locked in NBA Big Board on to talk some draft stuff as well. And we will leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in, for rocking with the show. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday, another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.